Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another one of my videos. So the finale is drawing closer and there's a ton of theories out there, some of which would apply to the finale, some of which may end up applying to Season 8. Now if by any chance you've read these so-called leaked scripts for Season 8 or the finale of Season 7, please make sure you do not drop spoilers in the comments down below. But let's talk the top theories out there that I could personally get on board with when it comes to Game of Thrones. So if you're not all caught up watching Game of Thrones, then careful. This video contains spoilers. The first theory on my list is all about Season 8 and what the bittersweet ending GRRM has promised will be like. We actually have two theories in this regards and both happen to be all about the Night King. The first of these two assumes Bran would somehow end up having to work for good into the Night King in his attempt to control and stop him. This theory then goes to state that Jon Snow would be forced in his war with the army of the undead to end him, thus killing his own brother in the process. The second theory in this context assumes Jon Snow will end up sacrificing himself, becoming the new Night King, and using his new position of leadership to turn around the army of the undead away from Westeros, thus ending the war. Now this one is actually my personal favorite when it comes to bittersweet endings. Such an ending would just ensure that the story does not end in the traditional good won and evil lost without a fan favorite and elite character being taken away as part of such ending. But moving on to number 2 on my list, and a theory that's all about Sam Tarly. Now this one assumes that Sam here is the narrator of this whole story. He's basically the GRRM of Westeros, only he lived through it all. The theory assumes Sam is relaying the story years after this entire conflict has been over and done with, or after White Walkers have taken over. Now this theory is supported with a specific event from Season 7 and Eberroth's writing of a historical account titled The Chronicles of War Following the Death of King Robert I. And when you think about it, that is pretty much the plot of the entire show from the very beginning. But that also brings us to another theory pertaining to a possible ending for the show. This theory claims that everyone will be dead in the end except for a select few as the White Walkers prevail. But what follows the White Walkers prevailing have come in two forms. The first form of the theory assumes that it is all a loop, the endless struggle of mankind, and in this version all the big names end up dead, only a select few remain and they pretty much flee to Essos. Now over there, they would pretty much start over again and over time history would end up repeating itself, good and evil, man and White Walkers, the whole 9 yards. But on the other hand, the second version assumes they would still flee to Essos, only in no time the White Walkers would freeze the ocean and get to everyone there, dominating the world and leaving no man alive. But let's move on to the third theory I have here. Now this one here assumes that everything that's been happening on Game of Thrones have been controlled by only two people, puppeteers of sorts. The rest are all just playing right into their hands. The theory claims that all the events we've watched unfold so far in Westeros and the events we'll watch unfold in the future are all controlled by only two, the most cunning on the show since its inception, Varys and Littlefinger. They've both just been at the center of every big thing that happened so far, and at least Varys will remain at the center of all of it for the bigger portion, if not the entirety, of Season 8. Now given my expectations, Littlefinger's life is coming to an end pretty soon, either at the very end of Season 7 or on the Season 8 premiere, I'll just focus on Varys. Varys has been at the center of all of it from the very beginning, and has been manipulating everyone in his very own way, sometimes seemingly for the good of Westeros, and at other times, well, his motivations can be questionable. Now this theory relies heavily on one incident or arc improving its worth, and the fact that it's all a big game of chess for Varys, and he's just moving the pieces. Early on in the events of the series, he befriends Tyrion Lannister, then goes out of his way to testify against him when he's accused of Joffrey's murder. Yet once again, he ends up aiding him in his escape. When you think about it, his actions are pretty calculated, and it seems everything ends up working just the way he wants it to. But let's move on to the fourth theory on my list, and AZOR AHAI. Now a lot of fans have been speculating on who AZOR AHAI will end up being on the show. Some claim it will be Jon Snow and some others claim it will be none other than Daenerys Targaryen. Given the AZOR AHAI prophecy, Jon and Daenerys sound like they have to be on top of that list. But then again, some others believe it will be Jaime Lannister, and for many reasons, including but not limited to his long redemption arc, his swordsmanship, and the fact that he would just not have been anyone's initial choice. But another theory being floated around is about the Hound being AZOR AHAI. When speaking of redemption arcs, the Hound has had his fair share. And part of the AZOR AHAI prophecy states that he'll be born amidst smoke and salt. And based on these two parts of the prophecy, and when it comes to Mr. Clegane here, there are two facts that are used to support the theory. The smoke here is identified as the fire that burnt him in his childhood, and the salt being the Battle of Blackwater, during which he almost died. The theory also goes to state that it would be such a great twist to watch Clegane save the day with a flaming sword, regardless of his fear of fire. Now the more you watch him on Season 7, the more this sounds like it could be true. But the real question here is, could that have been hinted as well by his visions from staring at the fire early on this season? But let's talk theory number 5. There's been a running theory for a while now that the walkers will be able to cross the wall and into Westeros. Now given the mark the Night King has on Bran, coupled with the dragon this guy now has under his command, it is all possible. We're yet to find out if he completely wrecks the wall with his dragon or has his armies just take parts of it out and pass through. However though, post-watching the penultimate episode of Season 7, we can all assume he orchestrated that entire situation. He surrounded them after they sent Gendry to seek help, waited on them, then tried to kill them until Dany has arrived, just to make sure he gets his prize, Viserion. That definitely makes the bigger chance here is that he needed the dragon to be able to cross the wall or bring it down. Hopefully though we get to find out what it was on the finale of Season 7 rather than having to wait all the way until Season 8 is released. But moving on to number 6 on my list. It's time to show me your dislikes on this video because I'm one of the bigger advocates of this one. AZOR AHAI or not, Jaime will leave Cersei behind and possibly end up being the one to kill her. In my very own opinion, Jaime has been one of the biggest enigmas on this show since it started. He was introduced as this antagonist to start with, pushing a younger version of Bran off the tower in order to cover up his own affair with Cersei. The show then went for strengthening the viewer perception that he's an asshole and over so many episodes. But then again, over the course of so many episodes, he was given this kind of redemption arc, or let's call it a road to redemption arc, because he's not really totally there yet. But we can all tell he's sort of different now. Instead of taking some sort of mercy upon Lady Olenna, the old Jaime would have at least made her life a living hell, give her a slow and painful death once she admitted she was behind Joffrey's death. I do understand that for some reason unknown to me, a lot of viewers are not seeing there has been a significant humanizing change to his character, but there is. The only thing actually keeping him close to Cersei right now is his love for her, and there is a point where that won't be powerful enough. I'm thinking it is something we might see either on the finale or on the Season 8 premiere, and after he meets Brienne at Tarth in King's Landing. After all, she did play a major role in that partial redemption arc of his I just spoke of, and maybe she's just gonna finish the job. But moving on to number 7, there are two theories when it comes to the Mad King and his successor in madness. Besides the theories that the Mad King went either mad or madder because of Bran whispering to him in his attempt to get him prepared for the White Walkers to come, some fans believe Daenerys and others believe Cersei is going to be the next Mad Queen on Game of Thrones. Daenerys, for starters, definitely doesn't seem to be that person, at least in my opinion, even though the show did try to throw us off in that direction on the 5th episode of the current season. Cersei though, and on the other hand, has been mirroring the Mad King in so many ways so far. And it all started with blowing up a whole lot of King's Landing on the finale of Season 6. Now this theory also goes to support that she might end up dead at the hands of Jaime in a history repeats itself kind of scenario. Jaime has already killed one Mad King, so this same fate might actually await her. Now I don't remember exactly if this was in the series, in the books, or actually in both, but Maggie did prophesize for Cersei that she would be killed at the hands of her younger brother, and I honestly don't think it would be Tyrion. That would just be so obvious, so cliche, and kinda stupid. But let's talk theory number 8 on the list of top 10 theories I've got here. If Daenerys were to win this war, and I think she would legitimize Gendry, making him the Lord of Storm's End. This theory is derived from the fact that Daenerys is willing to make peace with everyone so long as they would bend the knee and not resist her rule as the Queen of the Seven Kingdoms. The interesting thing about this theory though is it supports another theory that says this is all gonna be a loop. It would end up down the road creating the very same environment the whole thing started with. Baratheons, Targaryens, Starks, Lannisters, all of it. And while I'm a big fan of a bittersweet ending, I'm also a fan of the idea of history repeating itself, that the show would leave us with the kind of setup that would years, maybe centuries down the road, give us the very same outcome once again. It would actually make perfect sense. After all, history is already repeating itself in King's Landing, with Cersei going all Mad Queen and Jaime turning against her slowly but steadily. But let's move on to the 9th theory on this list. Now this theory is considerably an old one, or one that has existed for a while now, but has not necessarily been debunked with the death of Viserion and is turning into an undead dragon. The theory is all about 3 Targaryens, 3 heads to the dragon, in which basically adds one more Targaryen to the mix, that being Tyrion. The part about the 3 of them riding dragons into battle is kind of an unnecessary plot twist now with one fallen dragon. However, the part with Tyrion being a Targaryen has not necessarily been debunked here. The theory assumes that the Mad King possibly had an affair with Joanna Lannister, Tyrion's mother, the product of which was Tyrion. The theory goes to get further support from his father's words claiming he's no son of his, words that could be said to mean either that or to mean he's just nothing like him. But finally, let's talk number 10 on my list. There's so many theories when it comes to who the Night King happens to be or who the next Night King will be. I've already mentioned a couple early on in this video, and I've also uploaded a video on another one less than a week ago. That theory I've uploaded around a week ago claims that the Night King there is possibly none other than Bran Stark. Not in the flesh, not physically, but rather through Bran having worked into him, gotten stuck, and wasn't able to return. The theory did sound a bit out there for some of the commenters on my channel because of the fact Bran was told he will never walk again. However though, if it were kind of the out-of-the-body experience I'm discussing here, then technically he's not walking. Think about it, he's already walked into Hodor, who was standing and walking right then and there. Now the other objection there has been about the Night King being a Lord Commander of the Night's Watch. That would be the Night's King and not the Night King. This Lord Commander met a woman with gold skin and blue eyes reminiscent of a female White Walker, fell in love with her, and together they ruled over the Night's Watch. There are so many iterations or theories when it comes to who he was, one of which claims he was a Stark, but suffice to say he's been dead and gone long before the events of the series even started. But on the other hand, the Night King is none of those things. He was created differently as per Bran's vision. So if you decide to go back and check that theory out, or if you haven't checked it yet at all, please take these 2 points into consideration. And do let me know in the comments what you think of these theories. Are you in favor of any of them? Did any of them sound crazy to you? But in case all of this sounded crazy to you, remember this. There's always the theory that Ned Stark had the same powers that Bran has now, ended up warging into a raven before he supposedly died, got stuck there, and now he spends his time pooping all over King's Landing and the Lannisters. Now if you like the content of this video, make sure you slap it a much appreciated like, and while you're at it, make sure you subscribe and enable notifications as well. But until I see you next time, thank you all for watching and have a great day.